over 3 weeks now. It's hard to believe this is already our 4th week of the Meant for Contentment Challenge. And we have talked about Paul's steps towards contentment. And he tells us, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything with prayer and thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God will guard your hearts. I want to unpack that a little more deeply for us today, and I want to talk about Paul's concept of peace. Because what's another word for peace? Contentment. When we are at peace, we are content. And Paul calls it the peace of God. In other words, in Paul's thinking, in Hebrew thinking, in the Bible's way of teaching about peace, peace is a gift from God. It comes to us externally. We don't find peace by searching within ourselves. We don't find peace by meditating on a certain thing and allowing negative things to flow out of us. That is false teaching about peace. According to the Bible, peace is a gift, and we will never find it within ourselves. We receive it from God. And Paul says when we present our requests to God, when we are thankful for God and what he has given us, he grants us this gift of peace. But what does this gift of peace do? Paul says it will guard our hearts and our minds. You know what's interesting about that word guard? That Greek word that Paul uses there has 2 specific meanings. And the first meaning is to hold prisoner. The peace of God will hold our heart and mind prisoner. Do you remember where Paul was as he penned this letter to the church in Philippi? He was in a prison. In other words, what Paul is saying is when we are given that gift of peace, it is going to hold our heart and our mind captive from falling back into discontent. And he gives us a laundry list to know whether or not our mind has somehow escaped or our mind has never been taken captive in the first place. We've never truly received that gift of peace. And he gives us that list in Philippians 4:8. And he says, whatever is good, whatever is lovely, whatever is excellent, these are the things you think about. So do you have the peace of God in your life? What is your mind thinking about? If it's the things of Philippians 4:8, then you have received that peace of God. You have chosen, you have made the choice to not be anxious, but instead thank God for what you have and present with thanksgiving your requests before him. Paul also implies the second meaning of that Greek word, guard. The one is to hold captive or keep prisoner. The second is to keep silent. When God gives us his gift of peace, those racing thoughts and those damaging emotions become kept silent by the peace of God. If your thoughts and emotions are the things holding you captive, dear one, and not the peace of God, you're lacking contentment. And according to Paul, we lack contentment for the very simple reason that we have not made the choice to be grateful for what God has given us and to present our requests before God in full confidence that we serve the giver of all good and perfect gifts. So what we lack, what we don't have, that is for our good, not for our harm. Do you have the peace of God in your life today? And if you do not, ask your Heavenly Father for it, because he is the giver of all good and perfect gifts. And what is the peace of God? It's contentment.